and magically his eyes had been opened. Or it might have been a deceitful mist had rolled away, and the real Louvre had been revealed in its esoteric and soul-authentic beauty. "Why don't you try Chelsea?" said Mr. Enright over his shoulder, proceeding towards the stairs. "I was thinking of Chelsea." "You were?" Mr. Enright halted again for an instant. "It's the only place in London where the structure of society is anything like Paris. Why, dash it, in the King's Road the grocers know each other's business." Mr. Enright made the last strange remark to the outer door and vanished. "Funny cove," George commented tolerantly to Mr. Hame, who passed through the room immediately afterwards to his nightly task of collecting and inspecting the scattered instruments on the principal's august drawing-board. But Mr. Hame, though possibly he smiled ever so little, would not compromise himself by an endorsement of the criticism of his employer. George was a mere incident in the eternal career of Mr. Hame at Lucas and Enright's. When the factotum came back into the pupil's room, George stood up straight and smoothed his trousers and gazed admiringly at his elegant bright socks. "Let me see," said George in a very friendly manner. "You live somewhere in Chelsea, don't you?" "Yes," answered Mr. Hame. "Whereabouts, if it isn't a rude question?" "Well," said Mr. Hame, confidentially and benignantly, captivated by George's youthful charm, "it's near the Redcliffe Arms." He mentioned the Redcliffe Arms as he might have mentioned the Bank, Piccadilly Circus, or Gibraltar. "Alexandra Grove, No. 8. To tell you the truth, I own the house." "The deuce you do!" "Yes. The leasehold, that is, of course. No freeholds knocking about loose in that district." George saw a new and unsuspected Mr. Hame. He was impressed, and he was glad that he had never broken the office tradition of treating Mr. Hame with the respect not usually accorded to factotums. He saw a property owner, a taxpayer, and a human being behind the spectacles of the shuffling, rather shabby, ceremonious familiar that pervaded those rooms daily from before 10 till after 6. He grew curious about a living phenomenon that hitherto had never awakened his curiosity. "Were you really looking for accommodation?" demanded Mr. Hame suavely. George hesitated. "Yes." "Perhaps I have something that might suit you." Events, disguised as mere words, seemed to George to be pushing him forward. "I should like to have a look at it," he said. He had to say it. There was no alternative. Mr. Hame raised a hand. "Any evening that happens to be convenient." "What about tonight, then?" "Certainly," Mr. Hame agreed. For a moment George apprehended that Mr. Hame was going to invite him to dinner. But Mr. Hame was not going to invite him to dinner. "About 9, shall we say?" he suggested, with a courtliness softer even than usual. Later, George said that he would lock up the office himself and leave the key with the housekeeper. "You can't miss the place," said Mr. Hame on leaving. "It's between the workhouse and the Redcliffe." 2. At the corner dominated by the Queen's Elm, which on the great route from Piccadilly Circus to Putney was a public-house and halt, second only in importance to the Redcliffe Arms, night fell earlier than it ought to have done, owing to a vast rain-cloud over Chelsea. A few drops descended, but so warm and so gently that they were not like real rain, and sentimentalists could not believe that they would wet. People, arriving mysteriously out of darkness, gathered sparsely on the pavements, lingered a few moments, and were swallowed by omnibuses that bore them obscurely away. At intervals, an individual got out of an omnibus and adventured hurriedly forth and was lost in the gloom. The omnibuses, all white, trotted on an inward curve to the pavement, stopped while the conductor, with hand raised to the bell-string, murmured apathetically the names of streets and of public-houses, and then they jerked off again on an outward curve to the impatient double ting of the bell. To the east was a high defile of hospitals, and to the west the workhouse tower faintly imprinted itself on the sombre sky. The drops of rain grew very large and heavy, and the travellers, instead of waiting on the curb, withdrew to the shelter of the wall of the Queen's Elm. George was now among the group, precipitated like the rest, as it were, out of the solution of London. George was of the age which does not admit rain, or which believes that it is immune from the usual consequences of it.